When you open your eyes, you're no longer in the qanat tunnel. You're standing in a courtyard, soft sand beneath your feet, the edges ringed with stone buildings that curve inward, like the petals of a flower folding in toward dusk. Lanterns have been lit, not for brightness but for warmth. Their glow is golden and low, casting lazy shadows that sway like dancers, too relaxed to finish the choreography. And at the center of it all is a woman, older, composed, a matron wrapped in pale linen. She's stirring a bowl of something thick and steaming despite the hour. Around her, several others move like clock hands, setting dishes, folding cloths, passing clay jugs carefully from hand to hand. You've arrived in a kitchen, but not just any kitchen. This is a place of ritual. Your guide appears beside you once again, brushing dust from his sleeves like he just returned from somewhere warm. "Tonight," he says softly, "you'll see how cold was used not just to store badidi, but to nurture." You watch as the woman finishes stirring, then gestures to a large lidded container beside her. With practiced grace, she lifts the lid. Inside, chilled yogurt, still faintly steaming from the contrast between evening air and its deep-set coolness. The clay jar it's kept in has been buried halfway in the sand for insulation, with damp linen wrapped around the sides to draw heat out. Slowly, like a long sigh, she dips a ladle in and pours it over roasted eggplant and mint, a dish that smells of earth, fire, and mountain breeze. The aroma is comforting, somehow both rich and gentle. And then comes the moment you didn't expect. A platter of freshly cut cucumbers and dried apricots is placed beside a bowl of ice. Not crushed, not hidden, just there, clinking softly, like a polite guest, ready to sit at the table. The ice is used to rinse hands between courses. It's placed in water bowls to cool tea to the perfect sip temperature. It's served between dishes to cleanse the palate, the way the Persians once prepared not just the body, but the spirit to receive each flavor. You're led to a seat on a low cushion. The table is short and circular. Everyone sits equally. And the woman who seems to run everything. She doesn't bark orders or demand attention. She just moves. With the ease of someone who has done this so many times, her hands could make this meal in the dark, in her sleep, in a dream. Maybe in yours. Some historians still debate how often common households had access to ice, especially in rural villages. But across generations, even a little bit of cold, stored from the winter, brought from the mountains, bartered or gifted, could elevate a humble dish to a moment of grace. You take your first bite. It's warm, it's soft, and then you sip a spoonful of yogurt, tangy, chilled, sweetened with just a touch of rose. The contrast is perfect. The warm roasted flavors wrapped around the cool center, like a lullaby with a surprise inside. You look around and see others dipping apricots into bowls of snow, letting them chill for a few moments before eating. One child drops a date into an ice bowl and waits like it's a game. When she finally eats it, her eyes go wide and she laughs. You smile. That same child is you, because you too are tasting something forgotten. Not a flavor, but a gesture. A way of using cold, not to dominate but to balance, to soothe, to surprise, to show care. The dinner moves slowly, without performance, without pressure. It's a meal meant not to impress but to make room. Room for quiet, for flavor, for stories that don't need to be told all at once. As the final dish is served, a sliver of melon resting on a shard of ice, your guide leans over and whispers, "You've eaten like they did. You've rested where they rested. But now, would you like to hear how they disciplined?" You raise an eyebrow. He grins. Even the cold had its place in justice. You laugh, but he doesn't elaborate. Instead, he finishes his tea, sets his cup down, and gestures toward the shadowed archway at the edge of the courtyard, the path ahead curling away like a story not yet told. The others begin to clean, speaking in soft voices, laughter and plates clinking like wind chimes. The scent of mint and clay still lingers. You stand, your body warm, your breath steady, your mind unusually quiet. And as you walk toward that archway, toward whatever peculiar tale the cold has to tell next, you pause, look up at the darkening sky and smile, because somehow, even in a land of fire and stone, ice has always made its way to the table, and maybe so have you. The path through the archway is dim and narrow, lit only by the flicker of a single hanging lantern, the kind that doesn't light your way so much as it accompanies you. The air grows cooler with each step, not because of altitude or architecture, but because of intention. Whoever built this corridor meant for you to slow down, to lower your voice, to listen. And at the end of the passage, a door. Your guide opens it without knocking. Inside is a small chamber. Stone walls, no windows. And at the center, a single block of ice clear as glass and about the size of a small table. It sits in a shallow clay trough, dripping slowly into a gutter that traces the room's edge. Beside the ice block, a stool. And on the stool, a very guilty-looking man. You hesitate. Your guide grins. I told you. Even the cold had its place. Injustice. You step inside. This, he explains, is one of the more peculiar and frankly oddly adorable aspects of Persian judicial creativity, the cooling punishment, not torture. Not imprisonment, just enforced reflection. Literally. For minor infractions, say shouting in the market, disrespecting a guest, or sneaking extra apricots from a communal basket, some communities didn't opt for fines or beatings. No, they had a more elegant solution. A timeout, next to ice. The offender would be led to a cooling room like this, seated beside a block of ice harvested and stored by the town's ice keepers. And then, they'd wait. They'd cool off. Literally. And figuratively. Usually it was half an hour. An hour, max. Long enough for tempers to thaw, for pride to condense, and for the person to emerge less like a flame and more like a mist. You glance at the man on the stool. He nods, sheepishly. Told the baker his bread tasted like rocks, he mumbles. It didn't. It was just a bad morning. You both chuckle. He shifts slightly, clearly aware of the puddle forming near his sandals. Some historians dismiss this as folklore. Others say it was a genuine part of small-town governance, especially in desert regions, where managing heat wasn't just physical, but social. After all, in a place where tempers can rise as quickly as the sun, maybe ice wasn't just for preservation, but for peacemaking. You sit beside the man for a moment. You don't talk, you just share the cold. There's something strangely comforting about it. The room hums with drip-drip rhythms, and your skin starts to tingle where your arm brushes the air above the ice. The man stands after a few minutes, bows slightly, and exits. Your guide watches him go. We never had repeat offenders, he says. Not because the punishment was harsh, but because it was ridiculous. No one wants to be the guy who got out-argued by frozen water. You laugh, a full, sleepy laugh now, the kind that comes when your body is tired, but your spirit is wrapped in a blanket of old wisdom and good company. As you leave the chamber, you notice a small plaque above the door. The inscription, barely visible in the fading light, reads, "Anger is a summer. Patience is a mountain, ice is both." You step outside and the night greets you fully now, stars scattered like cracked ice across the sky, the air finally still. You walk in silence, the echo of the cooling room still lingering in your bones. Not just the chill, but the lesson. That sometimes to resolve heat, you don't raise your voice. You lower the temperature, and as the stars stretch across the desert sky and the sand cools beneath your feet, you feel the gentle tug of sleep once more, like even your thoughts are lying down for the night. Because tonight, even the stories are resting, and you've earned your place beside the ice. You walk now through the quiet village square, slower than before, your steps softer, as though your feet have learned the rhythm of the past. The stones underfoot are warm from the day, but not harsh. Like everything here, they seem to understand. Balance. Your guide motions toward the edge of the plaza, where an older man is lighting small oil lamps along the outer wall of what looks like a low, wide hall. The scent of the flame mixes with something metallic, cool, crisp, almost like steel touched by frost. Inside, the space is hushed and circular, like a council chamber or a very modest throne room. But at the center, there's no chair, no dais, just a round table carved from dark stone, smooth, solid, and cold to the touch. Come, your guide says, and see how cold became power. You sit at the edge of the table. Across from you, shadows move, other guests. perhaps, or memories, it doesn't matter. The story is already waiting. In some regions of ancient Persia, particularly during the height of the Achaemenid dynasty, there were moments, small, rare, deeply ceremonial, when ice was used not just as luxury or punishment, but as currency. You blink. Wait, currency? He nods. Not in the way you think, not coins, not trade, but influence, leverage, a sign that you could bring winter to the summer. You listen, as he explains. How in court negotiations, a tray of chilled fruit, offered in mid-July, was a silent message, a sign that the host possessed both resources and reach. Ice, when shown or shared, told your guest, I can bend the seasons, I can protect what melts, I control what disappears. In one case, a tale told often but never written, a minor lord is said to have brought peace to a boiling border dispute by sending not soldiers or silver, but a chest of snow packed with almond blossoms, carried overnight by 20 riders. The rival prince received it at dawn, opened the box and wept. I had forgotten, he reportedly said, what mercy felt like. Some historians argue the story is romanticized, and let's be honest, it probably is. But here, in this chamber, stories breathe more truth than records ever could, because even if the gesture never happened exactly that way, the idea of it did. And ideas, and when held long enough, become tradition. Here the table was used for council meetings, disputes, pacts. In summer, a bowl of ice would be placed at the center, not for refreshments, but as a reminder. That clarity could be cooling. That anger, like ice, melts faster when exposed to light. You run your fingers along the stone table, it's cold, unnaturally so. Your guide tells you the chamber was built with narrow subterranean vents, connected to a shallow ice vault below, making the table cool even in July. A feat of architecture, yes, but also a symbol. A ruler who could keep this table cold, he says, was a ruler who kept his kingdom steady. You look up and see now that each oil lamp flickers not against plain walls, but against faint reliefs, etched images of frost, flame, sun, and water. The four forces that governed not just climate but character. Somewhere nearby a slow drumbeat begins, not loud, just a heartbeat, perhaps ceremonial, perhaps imagined. You close your eyes for a moment and feel the cold from the table seep into your hands, your wrists, your chest. Not harshly, just enough to remind you what calm feels like. And in that silence, in the coolness, in the absence of anything sharp or urgent, you feel a soft revelation settle over you. That maybe ice was never just about resisting the heat. Maybe it was about slowing time, creating pause, space, grace. You open your eyes. Your guide is watching you, not speaking. He doesn't need to, because here at this table everything that needs to be said has already been cooled into silence, and as you rise and step out into the starlit night, your breath just barely visible in the air, you know that your journey is nearly complete. Just one more tale to hear, just one more breath of ancient cold before it all melts gently into sleep. The night is deep now, a soft velvety darkness speckled with stars that seem to breathe with you. You walk slowly, each step quieter than the last. Even the wind has hushed, as if the desert itself knows this is the end of a long, cool journey. Your guide is beside you, but he doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. You pass through one final garden gate, simple, wooden, half open. Beyond it, not a grand monument or majestic dome, but a small cemetery, dotted with stones low to the ground, many of them rounded smooth by time and wind. In the center is a single circular stone basin, much like the one you saw during the ceremonial ice melting. Only this one is dry, empty, but not abandoned. A woman kneels beside it, placing a small clay bowl of ice at the edge of a gravestone. The ice is perfectly clear, not large, not ornate, just enough to shimmer in the starlight. She doesn't cry. She doesn't speak. She just places the ice, brushes her fingers across the name carved into the stone, and stays a while. Your guide finally speaks. In some towns, he says quietly, they believed the dead deserved to feel winter one last time. You look around, and sure enough, at the base of several stones you notice more of these small offerings. Shallow bowls, stone cups, even carved hollows in the earth, each holding just a little bit of cold. Not for mourning, for memory. The sheep, ice would melt by dawn, of course, always did, but that was the point. It was a gesture not of permanence but of presence, a moment to say you are remembered, you are cooled, you are loved. Some scholars don't know what to make of these rites. The records are inconsistent, and many dismiss them as isolated traditions. But those who've been here, who've seen these soft, luminous bowls in the dark, know better. This wasn't about religion, it wasn't about ceremony, it was about temperature and the way it touches us. The living brought the cold not to preserve the dead, but to remind themselves of stillness. To feel for just a moment what it's like when the rush of heat, of life, of urgency, of ambition pauses. You sit beside the basin, your fingers trail along its rim. The stone is warm now, but you know it has held cold. You know it remembers. Your guide kneels too, not beside you, but nearby, giving you space. He takes a small ice shard from his pouch and places it gently into the bowl. It cracks softly, that satisfying sound of melt meeting stillness, and you feel the weight of it all, not heavy but whole. The chill of history, the warmth of memory, the quiet of understanding. You lie back on the soft ground, staring up at a sky so clear it feels like glass. Stars blink gently. Somewhere, a fox cries once, then falls silent. Even the wind seems to take a breath and hold it. And here, with your body cradled by sand and your spirit wrapped in something older than sleep, you let go. You feel the last of the day slide off you like water off melting ice. Your thoughts slow, to a trickle. Your breath matches the night's rhythm and slowly and softly cut you drift.